You've probably heard this story. An angry developer threw a tantrum, deleted his code, and broke the internet. That's what everyone thinks happened. Here's what they don't tell you. NPM, the platform itself, gave him the script to do it. The CEO literally handed him the delete button, and the package that broke everything, 11 lines of code. A function that adds spaces to a string. It was downloaded 2.5 million times a month. Facebook depended on it, Netflix depended on it, and nobody even knew. By the end of this story, you'll understand why every NPM install you run is an act of blind faith, and why that faith is more fragile than you think. By 2016, JavaScript had a religion, and its god was modularity. Need to check if a number is positive? There's a package. Need to check if a number is odd? Package. Need to pad a string with spaces? You guessed it, package. The NPM registry had become the world's largest software repository. Hundreds of thousands of packages, millions of developers, and one private company. NPM Incorporated controlled all of it. No foundation, no community governance. One company held the keys to the JavaScript supply chain. Buried deep inside this web was a package called LeftPad, written by a developer named Azer Kosulu. 11 lines of JavaScript. All it did was add characters to the left side of a string until it reached a desired length. 2.5 million downloads in a single month. For a function you could write in your lunch break. But here's the thing nobody understood yet. LeftPad wasn't just popular. It was load-bearing. React depended on it. Babel depended on it. Webpack depended on it. Not directly, through chains of dependencies 4 or 5 levels deep. Like a single bolt holding up a bridge that nobody inspected. And there's one detail about what happened next that changes everything. We'll get to it. March 11th, 2016. Kosulu gets an email from a company called Kick Interactive, 200 million users, a messaging app, and they want his package name. Kosulu had published a little CLI tool on NPM called Kick. Nothing to do with the messenger, just happened to share the name. The email was polite, sort of. Mike Roberts, Kick's head of messaging, wrote, "We don't mean to be a dick about it, but it's a registered trademark in most countries around the world, and if you actually release an open-source project called Kick, our trademark lawyers are going to be banging on your door." Read that again. We don't mean to be a dick about it. Then they threatened lawyers. Kosulu said no, he'd had the name first. He wasn't selling, he wasn't giving it away. Keek escalated. They went to NPM support, legal threats, formal complaints, and NPM's CEO, Isaac Schluter, the man who created NPM itself, made a decision. He transferred the Kick package name to Kick Interactive without Kosulu's consent. A corporation asked. A platform complied. An individual developer lost. And that's when it gets truly terrifying. Kosulu didn't rage. He didn't hack anything. He sent NPM a message, "Remove all my modules." And here is the detail that changes the entire story. NPM CEO, Isaac Schluter himself, provided Kosulu with the script to delete everything. The platform gave him the command, copy, paste, execute. 273 packages. Gone. Kosulu was working at a startup called Jelly, housed in Lucasfilm's Presidio building in San Francisco. He ran the command. Within 10 minutes, a friend texted him, "You're trending on Twitter." He went from anonymous developer to the guy who broke the internet in the time it takes to get coffee. But Kosulu didn't break the internet. Not on purpose. LeftPad was just one of 273 packages he deleted. He didn't know, couldn't have known, that this one tiny function was a hidden pillar holding up half the JavaScript ecosystem. Remember the misconception? The angry developer who threw a tantrum. This is what he actually said. This was driven by my heart. Not logic, not anger, nor greed. Event 2:30 p.m. Pacific Time, March 22nd, 2016. Builds start failing. Hundreds per second. Then thousands. React. Broken. Babel broken. Webpack. Broken. Node projects across the planet. Broken. Developers everywhere running npm install like they do every morning. Suddenly, red errors everywhere. They check Twitter. Chaos. Nobody understands what's happening. If you liked and subscribed right now, I'd tell you the next part is where it gets absurd. Because it is. Cameron Westland, an npm employee, republished LeftPad within 10 minutes. Version 1.0.0. Crisis over. Right? Wrong. Most projects depended on version 0.0.3 specifically. The new version didn't match. Builds kept failing. And while everyone was scrambling to fix the availability crisis, something far worse was happening in the shadows. Within minutes of Cthulhu unpublishing his packages, unknown actors claimed the abandoned package names. They published unknown code under the same names. Anyone running npm install could have pulled malicious code. An availability crisis just became a security crisis. And nobody was watching. 4 hours and 55 minutes after the deletion, npm CTO Larry Voss made a decision that had never been made before in npm's history. He restored LeftPad version 0.0.3 from backup. Without the author's permission, his words, even within npm, were not unanimous that this was the right call. But I cannot see hundreds of builds failing every second and not fix it. Think about that for a second. npm took a developer's code and gave his package name to a corporation. The developer protested by removing his work, and npm responded by taking his code again, restoring it without his consent. Cthulhu was protesting that npm treated corporations as more powerful than individual developers, and npm's fix for the crisis proved him exactly right. The hero lost by winning. The system validated the critic by defeating him. 2.5 hours of global chaos, hundreds of thousands of broken builds, and the philosophical wound. That one never healed. The aftermath reshaped everything. npm changed its rules permanently. Packages older than 24 hours with dependents could never be unpublished again. Your code becomes infrastructure, and infrastructure doesn't belong to you anymore. JavaScript itself evolved. ES 2017 added to-truckfec to stored as a native method. The language literally grew a new feature because 11 lines of code proved how broken the ecosystem was. Rust's package manager. Crates.io designed yank instead of unpublish. You can deprecate but never delete. Specifically because of LeftPad, package lock files became standard practice. Supply chain security became an entire field. And Cthulhu? He quit his job, left the United States permanently. Spent a year traveling through Morocco, Jordan, Turkey, and Indonesia. Hiked the Lycian Way along the Turkish coast. 8 years later, he broke his silence, and he revealed the detail that nobody knew. npm gave him the script. The CEO provided the deletion command. The platform didn't just allow the crisis, it facilitated it. He called the experience a death and rebirth moment. Here's what LeftPad actually exposed. The internet runs on the unpaid labor of strangers. Individual developers write code for free. That code becomes infrastructure. Billions depend on it. But there are no contracts, no SLAs, no obligations, and apparently, no rights either. Every npm install is an act of trust. Trust in hundreds of people you've never met. maintaining packages they're not paid to maintain, for companies that make billions from their work. David Haney called it stringing APIs together and calling it programming. Brian Cantrill argued that NPM should be managed by a foundation, not a private company. Critical public infrastructure controlled by a private entity with no community oversight. And what happened? NPM was eventually acquired by GitHub in 2020, which is owned by Microsoft. The governance problem was solved by an even bigger corporation taking over. 10 years later, the dependency problem is worse. Not better. The average JavaScript project has hundreds of transitive dependencies. The NPM supply chain attacks of 2025 proved that LeftPad was just the preview. I run npm install almost every day, and every time I think about LeftPad. Not because I'm scared, because it asks a question nobody has answered. When millions of people depend on your free work, do you still own it? Can you still walk away? Or does your generosity become a cage? Cthulhu gave his code to the world for free. The world built on top of it without asking. And when he tried to take it back, the system said no. That's not a bug. That's the social contract of open source. And it has no legal backing. Next time you run npm install, scroll through your dependency tree. Really look at it. How many of those packages do you know? How many of those maintainers would you recognize? How many of them could disappear tomorrow? LeftPad was 11 lines. The next one might be 11,000. Speaking of code you trust with your life. October 29th, 2018. Lion Air Flight 6, 10 nosedives into the Java Sea. 189 people. 5 months later, it happens again. Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302. 157 more. 346 people. 2 brand new Boeing 737 MAX aircraft, and a piece of software called MCAS that the pilots didn't even know existed, fighting them for control of the plane. To Zengujation's 5 options. 1. 11 lines of code broke the entire internet, 44 chars. 2. The 11-line npm package that took down Facebook, 48 chars. 3. That time-a-string function broke the internet, 46 people. 2 brand new Boeing 737 MAX aircraft, and a piece of software called MCAS that the pilots didn't even know existed, fighting them for control of the plane.